What would you do if you were a man who had been pushed too far? What if the very system that was supposed to protect you turned against you, and you had no choice but to defend yourself? Meet Jameson, a man whose quiet life takes a turn when an officer assaults an elderly black man, and things quickly spiral into a violent showdown. The officer never expected what would happen next. You won't believe how Jameson, pushed to the brink, takes control of the situation, and flips the script on his attacker. Get ready for a roller coaster of action, suspense, and shocking twists. Trust me, this is a story you don't want to miss, but before we dive in, let me ask you this: what would you do if you were in Jameson's shoes? How far would you go to protect yourself and those you care about? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And hey, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this story with your friends if you want more action-packed, heart-pounding tales. Oh, and let us know, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now, let's get into the heart of the story. The late afternoon sun glared down on Marlowe Street, casting long shadows across the sidewalks. An old man in a navy blue trench coat slowly made his way past the corner store, his gait steady but deliberate. His name was Jeremiah Cole, a 72-year-old retired mechanic and Vietnam War veteran. His grizzled beard and hard-earned wrinkles spoke of battles long past, both in uniform and in the real world that often didn't treat him fairly. In his hand, he carried a small brown bag with a loaf of bread, a can of beans, and a single bottle of water. Times were tough, but Jeremiah was tougher. He was just a few houses from his small apartment when the screech of tires startled him. A black and white squad car jerked to a stop in front of him. The door slammed open, and out stepped Officer Troy Denton, a 30-something white cop with a chip on his shoulder and a temper like dry gunpowder. "Hey! You there!" Officer Denton barked, one hand already on the grip of his taser. "What's in the bag?" Jeremiah turned slowly, instinctively raising both hands with the bag still hanging from his fingers. "Just groceries, officer." Denton's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer, invading the elderly man's space with the confidence of someone who thought his badge gave him immunity. "You match the description of a suspect reported 5 blocks down," Denton said coldly. "Older black male, dark coat." Jeremiah furrowed his brow. "I've just come from the store. I haven't done anything. Don't get smart with me." Denton yanked the bag from Jeremiah's hand and flung its contents onto the pavement. The bread squashed, the can rolled, and the water bottle burst open, spraying across the sidewalk. Jeremiah's heart thudded. "Now that wasn't necessary," he said calmly. "That was all it took." Without warning, Officer Denton shoved Jeremiah hard in the chest. The old man stumbled backward, tripped over the curb, and hit the ground hard. Pain exploded in his back and elbow as the air whooshed from his lungs. A few bystanders across the street started shouting. One woman pulled out her phone and began recording. "You resisting?" Denton growled. Stepping over Jeremiah and grabbing him by the collar, Jeremiah's eyes flashed with something primal, something that had lain dormant for years. "I served this country," he said through clenched teeth. "You don't scare me, boy." Denton's face twisted with anger. He drew his baton. In that split second, Jeremiah reacted on instinct. He twisted his body and kicked Denton's legs out from under him. The officer crashed down beside him, baton skidding away. Gasps erupted from the bystanders. Denton roared in frustration. He rolled over, reaching for his belt. But Jeremiah was already on one knee, grabbing the taser from Denton's side holster. In a blur, he flipped it in his hand. Aimed it, and fired. Electric darts shot out and struck Denton in the chest. The cop spasmed violently, jerking on the ground like a puppet with cut strings. Jeremiah stood over him, breathing hard, his muscles burning with adrenaline. "Stay down," he warned. Across the street, someone yelled, "We got this on camera." Jeremiah knew what was coming next. That taser wasn't going to be the end of it. He had just assaulted a police officer, even if it was self-defense, and Denton wouldn't be alone for long. Jeremiah scooped up his bag and turned to move. That's when he heard it, the distant whoop of sirens growing louder. He ducked into the nearest alley, his instincts taking over. He hadn't planned on running from cops at his age, but he'd lived through jungles, riots, and war zones. This he could handle. Halfway down the alley, he spotted a rusted fire escape. Groaning with effort, he climbed it, one step at a time, until he reached the rooftop of an abandoned laundromat. From there, he had a full view of the scene below. 4 squad cars pulled up. Officers swarmed out like ants, Denton had recovered enough to stand, humiliated and furious. Old man's armed. He's got a weapon. He yelled, trying to cover his disgrace. He went that way. A woman called, pointing vaguely toward the alley. Jeremiah crouched behind a vent, taking deep breaths. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small flip phone. No GPS. No apps. Just numbers. He dialed, yeah. Came a gravelly voice on the other end. I need the favor you owe me, Jeremiah said. There was a pause. You sure? Dead sure. Another pause. I'll call the team. Stay low. We're coming. Jeremiah clicked the phone shut. He leaned back against the metal vent, letting the cool wind hit his face. His heart was pounding, but his mind was focused. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Meanwhile, back on the street, Denton barked orders like a man desperate to reclaim control. I want every alley covered. Check security cams from every store in a 4-block radius. That bastard laid hands on an officer. He's not getting away with it. One officer hesitated. Sir, there are witnesses saying he didn't do anything wrong. That you escalated. Denton turned on him. Are you questioning me? The younger officer went silent. Above them all, Jeremiah watched, his hand resting on something he hadn't touched in years, a small, custom holster strapped beneath his coat. Inside, a compact pistol, unregistered but well-maintained. He hadn't used it in over 2 decades. But if they came for him like they did before, this time, he was ready. The streets buzzed with tension. Cops questioned pedestrians. Helicopters began to circle overhead, and on the rooftops, Jeremiah moved with silent purpose. Jeremiah slid across the rooftop like a shadow, each step carefully measured. His knees ached and his shoulder throbbed from the earlier fall, but the fire in his chest refused to let him quit. He had been hunted before, different time, different uniform, but the tactics were the same. Intimidation, force, cover-up. They just wore badges now instead of camouflage. Down below, the voices of officers echoed in the alleyways like hounds on a trail. Sirens flashed red and blue across the city's dull gray walls, bouncing off windows and metal like warning flares. He moved toward the back edge of the roof and crouched low. Across the street, perched behind an HVAC unit, was another figure, dressed in black tactical gear with a compact pair of binoculars. The figure gave a brief nod and pressed a finger to their earpiece. Jeremiah smirked. Didn't think you'd get here that fast, Lena. Lena Michaels had been one of his top students back when he taught hand-to-hand tactics at a private security firm in Virginia. She was ex-CIA, built like a panther, and didn't flinch under fire. Now, she was here because Jeremiah had once saved her life during a botched training op in Honduras. And she never forgot a favor. Got eyes on you, Jay, her voice crackled in his earpiece. You've stirred up a hornet's nest. At least 6 units on foot, and they're closing in. You okay? Still breathing. We've got 10 minutes to get you out. Teams moving into position. You gotta fall back. Jeremiah scanned the nearby buildings. Yeah. The old Trinity warehouse. 3rd and Hope. Underground tunnels still open. Copy that. Meet you there in 5. He took a breath and prepared to descend the fire escape. That's when the first gunshot cracked through the air. He ducked instinctively. Someone had fired a warning shot in the alley. It wasn't meant to hit, it was meant to flush him out. Below, Officer Denton was storming down the alley with 2 others. I don't care if he's 70 or 75, Denton barked. He assaulted an officer. He's a damn threat. Another officer murmured, with all due respect, sir, witnesses said. I said shut it. You want to write up too? Jeremiah grit his teeth. That man was spiraling. And dangerous. As he climbed down, movement from the left caught his eye. 2 officers entered the back of the laundromat, rifles raised, eyes sharp. Jeremiah dropped to the pavement and rolled behind a dumpster just as a beam of light from a flashlight cut across the alley. Freeze. One of the officers yelled, hands where we can see them. Jeremiah slowly emerged, hands up, but still partially shielded by the metal bin. Don't shoot. I'm coming out. One of the younger officers looked unsure. He's unarmed. It's the old guy. But Denton was approaching fast behind them, his face red with fury. That's him. On the ground. Now. Jeremiah's eyes flicked up. From the rooftop, Lena gave him the signal. Distraction in 3, 2, a small flashbang dropped from above and exploded just behind Denton. The alley filled with blinding light and deafening noise. The officers stumbled backward, momentarily disoriented. Jeremiah sprang into motion. In a burst of agility that belied his age, he grabbed the nearest officer's wrist, twisted the weapon from his hand, and ducked behind the dumpster as another shot rang out. He didn't fire, just used the weapon to cover his retreat. Lena rappelled down a side wall, boots crunching into the gravel. "Move, Jay." They ran side by side, weaving between buildings, ducking into an old shipping yard. Voices shouted behind them, but they didn't stop. "Did you just drop a flashbang on a city block?" Jeremiah panted. "Technically," Lena said, grinning, "it was non-lethal. And effective." They reached the rusted gate behind Trinity Warehouse. 2 other operatives waited, faces hidden under tactical masks. "Tunnel's clear," one of them said. They descended into the tunnel just as the thud of boots rounded the corner behind them. Jeremiah could hear Denton barking, "Search everywhere. He's here." The tunnel was cold, musty, but familiar. It had been used for years by veterans who needed an escape route, a shelter, or just a quiet place away from trouble. "Where does this come out again?" he asked. "Parking structure near 12th, Lena replied. "You'll be ghosted in 15. Jeremiah nodded. But as they rounded the corner of the tunnel, a bullet ricocheted off the wall beside him. They hit the ground. Someone had followed them in. Gunfire erupted. Lena returned shots with precision. Jeremiah took cover behind a concrete support beam, waiting for a clear view. Another shot blazed past. One of the masked operatives returned fire with a silenced pistol, striking the approaching officer in the thigh. The man fell, weapon clattering. Jeremiah rolled forward and grabbed the man's radio. "You called backup?" The officer groaned. "They're everywhere." Lena helped him up. "We've got to move." Another series of muffled explosions rocked the far end of the tunnel. Smoke. They were sealing the entrance. "No time," Lena said. "We go vertical." She flipped open a grate that led to an elevator shaft. It hadn't functioned in years, but the ladder still held. Jeremiah stared up. "This is your idea of an easy exit? You want a red carpet?" He grunted and started to climb. By the time they reached the top, he could hear more sirens overhead. They emerged in the back lot of a mostly abandoned building. A black SUV waited, engine humming. Lena shoved open the door. "Get in. We've got 30 seconds. As they pulled away, Jeremiah looked back at the chaos forming behind them, police units swarming like bees around the tunnel entrance. Unaware their target was already gone, Lena passed him a bottle of water. "You all right, old man?" "I've been worse," Jeremiah muttered, but his eyes were cold. Focused. This wasn't about running anymore, it was about making Denton, and the system that protected him, answer for everything. The SUV's tires screeched around a corner, narrowly avoiding a spike strip that had been deployed just seconds before. Lena gripped the wheel, swerving with expert precision as the city's nightscape blurred around them. Jeremiah sat in the passenger seat, calm but calculating. Every turn they took reminded him of evasion missions he once led overseas. Only now, the battlefield was home. "You see that spike strip?" Lena huffed, still steering hard. "That means Denton got clearance. They're trying to box the city. He's got pull. Maybe even federal backup." "We're not dealing with a regular beat cop," Jeremiah muttered, watching the rearview mirror. "Just how deep is this rabbit hole?" Jeremiah looked at her, his voice level. "Too deep to climb out alone." Lena's phone buzzed on the dashboard. She put it on speaker. "We've got a problem," said the voice on the other end. It was Taylor, their digital recon specialist. Denton flagged Jeremiah's profile with a code red. "That means shoot on-site orders if things go sideways." Lena's grip tightened. "What? For what?" "He was the victim." "Doesn't matter," Taylor replied. "They're pushing a narrative that he attacked Denton unprovoked. CCTV from the bodega malfunctioned during the scuffle. 2 news outlets are already running headlines about a violent vagrant attacking a decorated officer. It's a smear job." Jeremiah shook his head. "They're building a lie fast. That means they're scared of the truth." Taylor's voice dropped to a whisper. "I also found something." Denton's body cam footage wasn't scrubbed yet. I intercepted the raw file before they encrypted it. Lena and Jeremiah locked eyes. Can you send it to us? Lena asked. Negative, Taylor said. It's too risky. That file could be the nail in Denton's coffin, but they'll track anyone who downloads or forwards it. You'll need to retrieve it in person. Where are you? Safe house on 5th and Cooper. But get ready, once you take that footage, they'll know. Lena made a sharp turn, tires squealing as she rerouted. We're en route. Meanwhile, at the police precinct across town, Denton stood in the operations room, hunched over a digital map of the city with several senior officers around him. His eyes were bloodshot, and his jaw clenched tighter with every update, still no confirmation of capture. He barked. No, sir, said a young sergeant. But we have his general location narrowed to the west quadrant. Surveillance drones have been activated. Activate them all. I want air and ground. If that old man makes it out of this city, your pensions are on the line. The room fell silent, Denton's face twisted. He assaulted me. Put hands on a cop. He's dangerous. The other officers looked uneasy but didn't challenge him. But one, Lieutenant Bryce, raised an eyebrow. You said he knocked you out cold, but witnesses say otherwise. Denton turned slowly toward him. You questioning my report, Bryce? Bryce looked away but didn't reply. Back in the SUV, Lena and Jeremiah reached the safe house, a rundown 2-story building with a camouflaged exterior. They parked in a side alley, entered through the rear door, and were immediately greeted by Taylor, a wiry man with tech glasses and fingers that moved faster than light. Come quick, Taylor said. The footage is still here, but they're probing my firewalls. I can transfer it to a mobile drive, but once I do, they'll know we have it. He handed Lena a hardened USB drive. She plugged it in, and the screen lit up. There it was. Raw, uncut footage from Denton's body cam. They watched in silence as it played. It showed Jeremiah walking out of the bodega, holding a small grocery bag. Denton shoved him without cause, hurling racist slurs. Jeremiah backed up, tried to de-escalate, but Denton escalated further. He pushed Jeremiah again, and when Jeremiah used a simple disarming move to protect himself, Denton tripped and fell into a stack of crates. The video showed it all. The truth, Jeremiah's fists clenched. That video proves I didn't attack him. I defended myself. Exactly, Taylor said. And that's why he's desperate. He knows what's in this file could destroy him. Suddenly, an alarm blared from the computer. Crap. Taylor shouted. They've zeroed in on the IP. That fast? Someone on the inside must have tipped them. Outside, engines roared and lights flashed. They were surrounded. Lena pulled Jeremiah to the side window. We've got to get out, now. Taylor shoved the drive into Jeremiah's hand. Take it. You're the only one who can expose this. What about you? Jeremiah asked. I'll slow them down. Trigger the firewall decoys and overload their signal. Taylor, Lena started. Go. They rushed through the back, pushing past a rusted metal gate, and sprinted down the alley. Shots rang out behind them as 2 officers spotted their escape. Lena fired back, dropping one in the leg. The other ducked behind a trash bin. A black motorcycle was hidden beneath a tarp 2 blocks down. Jeremiah pulled it free while Lena handed him a helmet. You ride? She asked. Since '73, he smirked, straddling the bike. Take the drive to the pillar, Lena said. Upload it from there. It's a secure terminal buried under a law firm, they can't breach it. I'll distract the tail. Jeremiah hesitated. What about you? I've dodged worse. He nodded once and gunned the throttle. As he sped off, Lena turned to face the sirens approaching from every direction. She raised her weapon, eyes burning with fire. It wasn't just about Jeremiah anymore. It was about justice. For every time someone like Denton thought they could get away with it, back on the highway, Jeremiah weaved between traffic, the drive tucked into a zippered pocket inside his jacket. He kept an eye on the rearview mirror as a drone began to descend above him. He pulled out his burner phone. One call, Detective Marla Evans, a voice answered on the other end. It's me, Jeremiah said. I've got what you need. There was a pause. Where are you? Heading to the pillar. You in? You know I am. I've been waiting to take Denton down for years. Jeremiah's voice hardened. Then meet me there. Let's finish this. The thrum of the motorcycle echoed under the city overpass as Jeremiah throttled through narrow streets, weaving between cars like he was decades younger. His military instincts kicked in, eyes scanning, ears alert, hands steady. The USB drive with Denton's incriminating body cam footage pressed against his chest, zippered into his inner pocket like a ticking bomb. A surveillance drone buzzed overhead. Its spotlight flicked on, scanning the street with relentless precision. He swerved into a narrow alleyway, hoping the buildings would mask his heat signature. Tires skidded across wet pavement. The front wheel bounced off a broken curb, but Jeremiah didn't flinch. Suddenly, a blacked-out SUV screeched around the corner ahead. Headlights flashing. It was unmarked, but Jeremiah recognized the plate, a police ghost unit. They weren't here to arrest him. They were here to erase him. Two officers jumped out, weapons drawn, on the ground now. One yelled. Jeremiah didn't even slow down. He reached into his side satchel, pulled out a flashbang, and tossed it forward as he gunned the engine. The detonation lit the alley in white fire. Both officers were blinded instantly, screaming as the high-pitched whine drowned their hearing. The bike zipped past them. Jeremiah didn't look back. 10 blocks away, Lena stood against a concrete wall behind the safe house. Her hands were up, but her expression was ice. Officers surrounded her. Weapons aimed. You're harboring a fugitive, barked the sergeant. Harboring? Lena snorted. He was assaulted. But of course, I forgot, truth is a felony around here. One officer stepped forward and handcuffed her roughly, twisting her arms. She gritted her teeth but didn't cry out. She was stalling. That was her job now, buying Jeremiah every second she could. Inside her jacket, tucked in a secret seam, was her own copy of the video, encrypted, but complete. And if Denton's cronies dug through her pockets without care, they'd miss it. As they dragged her toward the squad car, she smirked. "Tick-tock, gentlemen," she muttered. "Your clock's running out." Meanwhile, Jeremiah cut through the warehouse district. Now only 3 blocks from the pillar. The downtown skyline towered above, casting long shadows over the dilapidated roads. He reached a narrow service tunnel that led to a private entrance under the building, but the entrance wasn't empty. 3 men in tactical gear, military style, but off regulation, stood waiting. Their faces were obscured by black masks. Mercs. Not police. Not feds. These were off-book hitters. Jeremiah killed the engine and got off the bike slowly, his hands visible. "Gentlemen, don't suppose you're lost." The lead man raised an assault rifle. "Hand over the drive." Jeremiah smiled faintly. "I don't think so." He moved fast. From his belt, he pulled a compact semi-automatic and fired twice. The lead merc dropped before he could shoot. The second man returned fire, but Jeremiah ducked behind a pillar, bullets ricocheting off concrete. He rolled into cover, then popped out, shooting the second merc in the shoulder. The third raised a shotgun, too late. Jeremiah's next shot hit center mass, 3 seconds. 3 enemies down. He stepped over their bodies, retrieved one of their rifles, and headed into the service tunnel. Inside the pillar, the underground law firm's security system came alive as he entered. He passed through a retinal scanner and descended a staircase into a sleek, high-tech interior. It looked more like a private intelligence hub than a law office. Detective Marla Evans was waiting, mid-40s, tall, with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She was one of the few good cops left in the city. She had spent years trying to bring Denton down from the inside, but the system was always one step ahead. "Jeremiah," she said, nodding. "You look like hell." "I feel worse," he replied, handing her the drive. Evans plugged it into a secure terminal. Within seconds, the footage loaded. She watched in silence, her face darkened. "It's all here. This is beyond excessive force. It's racist, abusive, illegal, and brutal. And he's still walking free," Jeremiah said. "Even has units trying to kill me for surviving." Evans stood up. "I'll have this uploaded to 3 whistleblower platforms. Once it's out, he can't run from it. And neither can the department." She pulled up a database of Denton's internal records. "Funny thing," she muttered. "Denton's been flagged in 7 misconduct cases. All closed. All sealed. Until now." Jeremiah's eyes narrowed. You think he's protected by someone higher up? I know it. And we're about to drag them out into daylight. Suddenly, the building's lights flickered. Evans looked up. Backup generators just kicked on. Jeremiah moved to the security console. We're being cut off from the grid. Evans drew her sidearm. They're coming. Within seconds, the security cams went black. The only feed left was the hallway. A group of armed men stormed through the elevator shaft. Not police. SWAT tactics, no badges. Private contractors. Evans looked at Jeremiah. You armed? Jeremiah raised the rifle he took from the Merc. Always. She grinned. Then let's give them hell. Gunfire erupted as the men breached the lower levels. Jeremiah and Evans took cover behind reinforced desks, returning fire with ruthless precision. One attacker tried flanking from the side, but Evans dropped him with 2 clean shots. Push left. She shouted. They're funneling down the main corridor. Jeremiah flanked them, picking off 2 from behind. Smoke filled the room. Alarms blared. One attacker lobbed a grenade. Evans grabbed it and threw it back before it detonated midair. The last of the mercs tried to retreat, but Jeremiah was already behind him. He pressed the rifle against the man's spine. Drop it. The merc obeyed. Who sent you? Jeremiah growled. Denton. Said to recover the footage at all costs. Jeremiah's jaw tightened. Too late. Evans finished uploading the footage just as more sirens wailed in the distance. This time, they were real. Unmarked black and whites, journalists, and whistleblower organizations had picked up the leak. The footage was viral. The whole city was about to see the truth, but Jeremiah knew the storm was just beginning. He looked at Evans. What now? She holstered her weapon. Now we go to war. By the time the city skyline turned a dusky orange, Jeremiah and Detective Marla Evans were already on the move again. They didn't wait for backup. Backup could be compromised. The video had gone viral in under 15 minutes. Every major news outlet was running it, along with underground activist networks and even international press. Denton's face, sneering, abusive, full of unchecked rage, was now the poster child of police corruption, but viral attention wasn't protection. Denton wasn't hiding. He was doubling down. Intel says he's holed up in the district's Special Response Command, Evans said, steering their unmarked vehicle through back alleys and access roads. He surrounded himself with loyalists and called in reinforcements. They're gearing for war, Jeremiah replied, loading fresh rounds into a suppressed Glock. Then we take it to them. Evans handed him a small radio earpiece. I've got 2 insiders on the ground, officers who know Denton's crossed the line and want no part of it. They'll help us breach the compound. As they approached the looming fortress that was Special Response Command, Jeremiah spotted armored vans lined along the exterior, and snipers stationed on rooftops. It was a military compound in all but name. Denton had transformed it into a bunker. It was clear he planned to fight until the last breath. Evans parked in the shadow of a maintenance tunnel that led underneath the facility. Their contact was waiting, Officer Troy Delgado. Hispanic, mid-30s, sharp-eyed and nervous. Evans, he whispered. You've got 10 minutes before the next rotation on cameras. After that, we'll be seen. Jeremiah nodded. 10 minutes is enough. They slipped through the maintenance hatch and entered the belly of the compound. The air was thick with concrete dust and dampness. Pipes lined the ceilings, dripping water in slow, rhythmic beats. Delgado handed them security badges. These will get you past the first 2 doors. After that, you're on your own. Jeremiah and Evans moved swiftly, timing each step. They bypassed 2 patrols and used the badges to enter a restricted wing. Here, the walls were smoother, clean, polished steel. Surveillance cameras blinked in every corner. Evans tapped her earpiece. Kill the hallway feeds. The second insider, a tech specialist named Amber Lynn, responded, done. You've got 5 minutes. Then they'll notice the loop. Jeremiah crept forward, checking corners. Where's Denton? Lynn replied, 3rd floor, west wing. He's fortified in the strategy room. Full guard detail. Evans glanced at him. We breach from the elevator shaft. They found the maintenance panel for the shaft and popped it open, revealing a narrow crawlspace that ran alongside the main lift. It was barely wide enough for two. As they climbed, the tension mounted. Jeremiah could hear the faint murmurs of officers above them, pacing, unaware their fortress was about to be breached from within. On the third floor, Evans kicked the vent grate silently. They emerged in the hallway just outside the strategy room. The two guards posted outside wore body armor and carried high-powered rifles. Jeremiah whispered, "Non-lethal?" Evans shook her head. "Not after what he's done." Two silenced shots rang out. The guards crumpled. Evans used one of the fallen guard's ID cards to unlock the door. It slid open with a hiss. Inside, Denton stood at the head of a long table, barking orders to half a dozen armed officers. A large screen behind him displayed the ongoing social media fallout, hashtags. Video clips, live protests erupting outside City Hall. When the door slid open, Denton turned, and froze. Jeremiah stepped in, weapon raised. "Evening, Captain." "Jeremiah." Denton's voice was venom. "You should be dead. Maybe you should have done it yourself." Evans followed in, weapon trained on the other officers. "Stand down," she ordered, but Denton's loyalists didn't flinch. One of them raised a rifle. Jeremiah dropped him with a shot to the chest. Another lunged at Evans. She sidestepped and delivered a crushing elbow to the man's throat. He collapsed, gasping. The room erupted in chaos. Gunfire, shouting, smoke. Jeremiah rolled behind a table, popping shots between laptops and overturned chairs. Denton ducked, firing his sidearm blindly. Evans tackled another attacker, disarming him and slamming him through a glass panel. Blood sprayed the floor. 3 minutes later, only Denton remained. He stood against the wall, chest heaving, gun empty. Jeremiah approached, weapon trained. "It's over," Evans said. "Surrender." Denton sneered. "You think this ends with me? I am the system." Jeremiah stepped closer. "Then it's time to tear the system down." Suddenly, Denton reached into his vest. Jeremiah fired once, center mass. Denton crumpled, groaning in pain. Evans moved in, kicked away the device he was reaching for, a detonator. "Coward," she muttered. They cuffed him on the spot. Just then, Lynn came through the earpiece. "Local media just got a tip. You'll have cameras on site in 5. Evans pulled Denton to his feet. "Then let's show them who's really in charge." They walked him through the halls of Special Response Command like a trophy of justice. Officers along the corridor watched in stunned silence, some in horror, others in quiet satisfaction. By the time they exited the front doors, flashing lights had swarmed the parking lot. Reporters, activists, and police reform groups lined up behind barricades. Evans held up her badge. "Captain Gerald Denton is under arrest for assault, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, and attempted murder." Cameras clicked. Microphones pushed forward. The crowd roared, but Jeremiah's eyes were on the rooftops. Something didn't feel right. The media swarm was deafening. Flashes popped like gunfire as Captain Gerald Denton, bruised and bloodied, was marched out in handcuffs. His crisp uniform now looked like a costume torn off a villain. Detective Marla Evans held him tight by the arm, her face cold and unflinching. Beside her, Jeremiah's posture was stiff, eyes sweeping the crowd. The energy was electric, activists shouting in triumph, officers whispering behind mirrored shades, reporters barking for soundbites. Denton snarled through gritted teeth, "You think this circus changes anything? I've got friends in high places." Jeremiah leaned in, his voice like steel. "You had friends. Now you've got handcuffs." But even as the city cheered outside the fortress of Special Response Command, something twitched at the back of Jeremiah's instincts. The rooftop, the tower across the street, too quiet. No glint of binoculars. No movement behind the shadows. "Evans," he muttered under his breath, "get him in the car. Now." Evans didn't question it. She tugged Denton toward an armored cruiser waiting by the curb. A second later, the silence cracked, a sniper round shredded the air, striking the pavement inches from Denton's feet. People screamed and scattered like startled birds. Another shot blasted a car mirror, glass raining down. Evans threw herself over Denton, dragging him to cover behind a police van. Jeremiah spun, drew his Glock, and fired 2 quick rounds toward the rooftop across the street. "Sniper!" he barked. "South building, 3rd floor." Chaos rippled. Cops scrambled. Protesters ducked. Jeremiah sprinted toward the source of the shot. He crossed the street, ducking behind a column as bullets pinged off concrete. Evan's voice crackled in his earpiece. "We've got Denton secured in the vehicle. Where are you?" Engaging shooter, he grunted, shoulder-checking the door to the building and slipping inside. The stairwell reeked of mildew and dust. Jeremiah took the steps 3 at a time, gun drawn. He reached the 3rd floor and moved silently through the abandoned office suite, where light filtered through shattered windows. He found the sniper near the far edge, tall. Black tactical gear, face obscured by a balaclava. Jeremiah didn't wait, he fired twice. One shot grazed the shooter's leg, sending him sprawling backward. The rifle clattered to the floor. The man lunged at Jeremiah, a blade flicking from his hand. Jeremiah ducked, twisted, and drove his elbow into the attacker's ribs. The man grunted, slashing wildly. Jeremiah blocked it with his forearm and delivered a knee to the gut. They crashed through a cheap desk and hit the floor hard. Jeremiah rolled on top and yanked the mask off. His blood froze. Whitaker. It was Officer Clint Whitaker, Denton's second-in-command. A man once known for charity drives and public goodwill. Whitaker's lip curled. "You really thought this ends with Denton? We're the foundation. You're just a brick we're removing." Jeremiah didn't respond. He drove a fist into Whitaker's face, knocking him out cold. Downstairs, SWAT teams had moved in and were sealing the perimeter. Jeremiah descended, dragging the unconscious Whitaker with him. As he exited the building, Evans waved him over. "You good?" "Better than him," he said, throwing Whitaker's limp body on the pavement. Sniper was one of Denton's. "We've got more loyalists out there." Evans cursed under her breath. "Then this isn't over." "No," Jeremiah agreed, eyes flicking toward the horizon. "It's just starting." They turned back toward the armored cruiser, but it was empty. "Gone," Evans' eyes widened. "Where the hell is Denton?" A low growl of engines filled the air. Then, from the far end of the block, a black SUV came tearing around a corner. "Bulletproof, no plates, he's being extracted," Jeremiah shouted. "Cover me." Without waiting, he sprinted toward his bike parked in the alley, a matte black Ducati with saddlebags full of weapons and gear. He gunned the engine and tore after the SUV. Evans barked orders into her radio. "We've got a mobile extraction in progress. Suspect is Denton, vehicle is black Suburban, heading eastbound on Thatcher Avenue." The city blurred as Jeremiah weaved through traffic, dodging cars, heart pounding. The SUV slammed through red lights, nearly plowing through pedestrians. From the rear window, gunfire erupted, automatic bursts that clipped the edge of a city bus and shattered windows. Jeremiah ducked low, drew a compact Uzi from his saddlebag, and returned fire. Glass exploded. The SUV swerved. "Keep shooting," one of the men inside shouted. "Don't let him get close." But Jeremiah was already beside them. He reached for a magnetic mine from his belt and hurled it. The device latched onto the SUV's undercarriage. The blast rocked the rear axle, sending the SUV skidding out of control. It slammed sideways into a fruit stand and rolled twice before settling in a mangled heap. Flames licked up from the engine. Civilians screamed and scattered. Jeremiah parked the bike and advanced on foot, gun aimed. He pulled the door open, empty. Denton was gone. A manhole cover nearby was askew. Evans' voice buzzed in his earpiece. "Jeremiah, what happened?" "He escaped underground." "Damn it." But Jeremiah was already climbing into the tunnel. The darkness swallowed him whole. Jeremiah dropped into the sewer tunnel, boots splashing in shallow, grimy water. The air was thick with rot, but he pushed forward, flashlight beams slicing through the gloom. Every few feet, boot prints appeared in the muck, fresh, hurried. He spoke into his comms. "Evans, he's heading west through the old drainage tunnels. I'm in pursuit." "Copy that. Back up en route. Be careful, he's not going down without a fight." Jeremiah holstered his sidearm and unslung the shotgun from his back. The narrow tunnels echoed with every footstep, but he moved like a shadow. Denton was somewhere ahead, wounded, desperate, and still dangerous. The tunnel branched. He paused, left or right. A sudden clank echoed from the right, a pipe kicked, maybe. He pivoted and sprinted down the corridor. The light flickered above him, casting jagged shadows along the walls. The smell of burning oil reached his nose. Then, he saw it, a rusted service ladder with smoke trailing upward from the manhole above. He scaled it in seconds, pushing the lid open just enough to peek. Outside, he was behind a burned-out warehouse near the waterfront. The SUV crash had drawn crowds and police blocks across town, but this place was quiet, too quiet. He slipped out and pressed himself against the wall, scanning the area. There, a flash of movement. Denton, limping toward a private boat dock. Escorted by 3 armed men. They moved fast, scanning the area. One carried a sleek black briefcase. Another had a silencer-equipped pistol. Jeremiah whispered, "Evans. Denton's on foot. He's got armed help. Looks like he's heading for a boat." Dock 27. Copy. Units inbound. ETA 4 minutes. "Won't make it in time," he muttered, and advanced. He darted between crates and wrecked pallets, closing in. Suddenly, one of the guards turned, eyes narrowing. Contact. Gunfire erupted. Jeremiah dove behind a crate as bullets tore through the wood, splinters spraying into the air. He rolled out, fired twice with the shotgun. One round hit a man square in the chest, sending him sprawling. Another rushed him with a blade. Jeremiah blocked the strike, slammed the shotgun stock into the man's temple, and followed with a knee to the gut. The man collapsed. Denton was already at the dock, the engine of a speedboat roaring to life. He turned and aimed a pistol at Jeremiah. "You should have stayed retired, old man." Jeremiah answered with a slug from the shotgun, knocking the gun from Denton's hand and shattering his wrist. Denton screamed and stumbled onto the deck of the boat, trying to crawl away. Jeremiah leapt onto the dock, disarmed one more guard with a spinning elbow, then lunged onto the boat. Denton reached into his jacket and pulled a small detonator. "You come any closer, I blow the whole pier. We both go up." Jeremiah paused. Denton's hand shook, thumb over the red button. "I'll do it. You think I care anymore? Everything I built, they're tearing it down." "You built it on hate," Jeremiah growled. "Time you paid for it." He raised his gun. Denton grinned. "Go ahead, then. Shoot me. Let everyone watch as the peacekeeper ends it like a thug." "No," Jeremiah said. Behind him, flashing red and blue lights emerged. Police vehicles skidded to a stop. Officers fanned out. Detective Marla Evans marched forward with purpose, cuffs in hand. "Drop the detonator, Denton. It's over." "You'll never touch me," he snapped. "I already did," a new voice chimed in. Everyone turned. From the shadows, the elderly man, Jameson Lewis, stepped onto the dock, a bandage on his head but fire in his eyes. He held a worn leather case, the same one Denton had stolen from his home. He opened it. Inside were files, video recordings, photographs. Every act of brutality, every order Denton gave, every cover-up. "Your reign ended the day you put your hands on me," Jameson said. "You didn't just assault an old man. You assaulted a survivor. And I'm done surviving, I'm speaking." Evans raised her voice. "Captain Gerald Denton, you are under arrest for aggravated assault, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and treason." Denton hesitated. Officers raised their rifles. Jameson stepped closer. "You were right about one thing. This ain't over." Denton's hand trembled. Then, slowly, he dropped the detonator. It hit the deck with a dull clack. Evans moved in fast, slapping the cuffs on him. The once feared captain didn't fight. His shoulders sagged. The crowd on the pier, activists, officers, media, watched in silence as he was marched toward a waiting cruiser, but not before passing Jeremiah and Jameson. "You'll burn with me," Denton snarled. "No," Jeremiah said, stepping aside, "we'll rebuild." As Denton was driven away, Jameson looked out over the water, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," he said quietly. Jeremiah nodded. "You didn't need saving, Jameson. You just needed a chance to fight back." The cruiser disappeared into the city's nightscape, its red and blue lights flickering like the final warning of a fading empire. Denton was gone, but the echoes of his reign were just beginning to unravel. Back at the pier, the silence was thick. Journalists whispered into cameras. Officers stood frozen. But at the center of it all was Jameson Lewis, worn but unshaken, holding the case of secrets he had risked everything to preserve. Detective Evans stepped up beside him. "What you did back there, that took guts." Jameson let out a slow breath. It took losing everything first. I wasn't trying to be brave, I was trying to survive. Jeremiah, still gripping his weapon, gave a small nod. You did more than survive. You exposed the rot. Jameson looked over at the leather case again. This isn't just Denton. There are more names in here. More people involved. Evans narrowed her eyes. You're saying it wasn't just him? Jameson popped open the case and pulled out a folder marked Operation Iron Tide. Inside were signed memos, audio transcripts, and photos that turned her stomach, names. Dates. Details. Some of them were still in uniform. Evans gritted her teeth. We're going to need a secure location. If this leaks before we're ready. Suddenly, a sharp crack split the air, a bullet shattered a floodlight overhead. Screams erupted. Sniper. Someone yelled. Jeremiah tackled Jameson to the ground as another round zipped past. Officers ducked behind vehicles and barriers. Evans barked into her radio. Shots fired. Unknown location. Lock down the pier, now. Jeremiah dragged Jameson behind a steel container as splinters flew around them. You still think Denton worked alone? Jameson hissed through gritted teeth. I know he didn't. Jeremiah peeked around the edge, scanning rooftops. There, a glint of scope reflection, west rooftop. He shouted. Third building in. Evans signaled. Tactical. Flank and neutralize. A squad moved, weaving between crates, but the sniper was good, too good. Another shot rang out, hitting one officer's vest and knocking him down hard. Jeremiah grunted. They're trying to silence the truth before it spreads. Jameson unzipped the case and retrieved a small flash drive taped under the folder's spine. They won't. Everything's on this. I made copies. Jeremiah stared at him. You're a clever old man. Jameson smirked. You don't survive 1963 Alabama without a few tricks. Suddenly, a deep boom echoed across the dock, smoke erupted from the rooftop where the sniper had been, a helicopter hovered into view, spotlights flashing, federal marshals. Drop your weapons. Within seconds, ropes dropped and tactical agents descended, storming the rooftop and securing the area. The sniper was pinned and dragged down. Bloody but alive, Evans exhaled. Good timing. Jeremiah looked skyward. Little late, though. Jameson stepped forward, brushing dust from his coat. That's the thing about the truth. No matter how hard they try to bury it, it always finds air. Later that night, they gathered at a secure federal building, documents spread across a long conference table. Marshals, FBI agents, and internal affairs investigators pored over every page, every file, every whispered conversation Denton had recorded. Jameson sat quietly, sipping coffee. Jeremiah stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the wall of photos connecting dirty cops, politicians, and lobbyists. Evans leaned over. We've got enough to open multiple investigations. This goes beyond Denton. This reaches the state attorney general's office, maybe higher. One of the agents spoke up. And there's encrypted data in here we haven't even touched yet. Could be a full list of operatives. Jeremiah glanced at Jameson. You ever think this moment would come? Jameson chuckled, deep and tired. I thought I'd die before it did. A tech specialist approached. We've traced the sniper. His name's Mark Lyman. Private contractor. Paid through offshore accounts linked to a security firm, which received payments from a shell company Denton controlled. Evans whistled. They were cleaning house. And Jameson was next, Jeremiah said, eyes narrowing. We need to move fast. There could be more hits in motion. Jameson looked up, his voice calm but firm. Then we don't wait. We strike first. Everyone turned to him. He placed the flash drive in the middle of the table. Everything you need is here. Names, hideouts, communication logs. These people thought they were above accountability. Let's remind them they're not. The room grew still. Then Evans nodded. Let's build the takedown list. Over the next hours, agents began assembling target profiles, detectives, captains, prosecutors, even a retired judge. It wasn't just about justice anymore, it was about dismantling an empire. Outside, dawn broke across the city. Sunlight reflected off distant skyscrapers, glinting like fresh hope. But the storm wasn't over yet. As Jeremiah stepped outside to catch some air, Jameson joined him. "You ever think about retirement?" Jameson asked. Jeremiah snorted. "Every day. But there's always one more fight." Jameson nodded slowly. "Same here. Except now. I think I'm finally ready." Jeremiah looked at him. "To rest?" "No," Jameson said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "To rebuild." Jeremiah looked out over the city, his jaw set. "Let's make sure there's something left to rebuild." Suddenly, Evans burst through the door. "We've got a problem. The courthouse has been breached." "What?" Jeremiah asked. Two suspects entered disguised as janitors. "Security footage confirms one of them is Gregory Hume, Denton's former lieutenant." "They're going after the evidence," Jameson said. Evans pulled out her sidearm. "No. They're going after the judge assigned to Denton's arraignment." Jeremiah's eyes narrowed. "We're not losing anyone else. Let's roll." Jameson tossed him a Kevlar vest. "Let's finish what they started." They loaded into a black SUV, sirens screaming as they peeled out toward the courthouse. The city wasn't sleeping. The war for justice was just changing shape. The black SUV tore through the downtown streets, slicing through traffic like a blade. Evans gripped the wheel, weaving through intersections as sirens screamed and tires screeched. Jameson sat in the back, vest strapped tight, eyes steady. Beside him, Jeremiah loaded 2 full mags into his pistol, the sound of metal clicking in rhythm with the beating tension inside the vehicle. "The courthouse is 8 minutes out," Evans called. "If they already breached, we might be too late." Jameson leaned forward. "Then we better make damn sure we're not." Evans nodded grimly. "Security's been radio silent for the last 4 minutes. No response from Judge Harold's bailiff. That's not a good sign." Jeremiah muttered under his breath. "Hume's not just any thug. He was trained for breach and clear tactics during his time with Black Ridge. If they're targeting Harold, it's not for intimidation, it's an execution." Jameson's jaw tensed. "And if they take out the judge, Denton walks." Evans slammed the steering wheel. "Not on my watch." The SUV skidded into the courthouse plaza, tires shrieking as they came to a halt. The scene was too quiet, no officers at the entrance, no courthouse staff in sight. Evans drew her weapon. "Move in." They advanced toward the building, weapons drawn, eyes scanning for threats. The front door had been forced open, hinges dangling like snapped tendons. Inside, flickering lights cast warped shadows across marble floors. Blood smeared the wall by the metal detector. A downed guard lay motionless, radio cracked beside him. Jeremiah knelt, checked his pulse. Alive, barely. But unconscious. Evans moved toward the hallway. "We need to find the judge now. There's only one courtroom with security-grade glass, Harold's chambers on the top floor." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from above, followed by muffled shouts and a burst of gunfire. "They're already there." Jameson barked. The team rushed up the central staircase, boots pounding stone as more gunshots rang out. Muzzle flashes lit the third floor landing like lightning in a storm. Jeremiah dove into cover beside a filing cabinet as bullets tore through the hallway. One struck a marble column near Evans, showering her with debris. "They're using suppressed automatics," she yelled. "Coordinated team, 3, maybe 4 men." Jameson flanked left, taking cover behind a door frame. He raised his Glock and returned fire. One hostile dropped, clutching his thigh and screaming. "They're not here for a message," Jameson growled. "They're here to eliminate anyone who can testify." Jeremiah slid a smoke grenade from his belt. "We blind them, flank fast, breach hard." He tossed the grenade down the hallway. A thick gray fog exploded into the corridor, swallowing the lights and screams in a heartbeat. Evans and Jameson moved left while Jeremiah rolled right, disappearing into the haze. Shots fired blindly from the attackers, their aim scattered and wild. The smoke was thick, disorienting, just enough for Jeremiah to get behind them. Pop. Pop. 2 precise shots, 2 men dropped. Evans kicked open the chamber door, catching a third gunman by surprise. She shot twice, chest and head. He dropped instantly. Judge Harold, tied to his own bench, stared wide-eyed as Jameson entered, gun drawn. "You're safe," Jameson said, quickly cutting his restraints. "Are you injured?" Harold shook his head, trembling. "They were going to kill me. Said if I didn't throw out the indictment, I'd never see another sunrise." Jeremiah secured the last gunman, zip-tying him to a broken table leg. "You're lucky we got here in time." Jameson looked at the judge. "Do you understand now, Your Honor? This isn't just one bad apple. This is systemic rot, and it's going to take fire to cleanse it." Judge Harold swallowed hard, finally nodding. "Denton's hearing will go on. I'll see to it personally." Suddenly, Jeremiah's radio crackled. "All units, code red. Be advised, explosive device discovered in courthouse basement. Evacuation in progress." Jameson stiffened. "A bomb?" Evans snapped into action. "Jeremiah, you and I sweep for the device. Jameson, get the judge to the marshal's van, now." Jameson grabbed Harold and bolted down the stairwell. 2 steps at a time. The building's emergency lights had activated, casting everything in red. Sirens blared in the distance, mixing with the faint wail of incoming fire trucks. Meanwhile, Evans and Jeremiah stormed the basement, dark, dusty, pipes hissing overhead. Near the electrical room, they spotted it, an improvised explosive, crudely built but powerful enough to level the entire ground floor. Jeremiah examined it. Pressure trigger. Remote detonation failsafe. They didn't want to take any chances. Evans handed him wire cutters. "You can disarm it." Jeremiah wiped sweat from his brow. "I'll try. Cover me." He crouched low, breathing steady as he traced the wires. Red, blue, green, each one rigged to multiple points. Jameson reached the outside steps with Judge Harold just as federal agents flooded the lot, weapons raised. "Secure the perimeter." A commander shouted. Inside, Jeremiah made the final cut. Click, the timer stopped at 6 seconds. "Clear." He yelled. Evans exhaled, collapsing against a pipe. That was too damn close. Back outside, the judge was escorted into a bulletproof van while Jameson stood nearby, looking over the city skyline. One of the agents approached him. "You did good. You know that, right?" Jameson didn't answer right away. He looked at the sunrise, calm washing over him. "We're not done yet," he finally said. "There's still more rot to cut out." Jeremiah and Evans joined him, bruised but alive. Evans nodded toward the courthouse. "We got Harold. The files are safe. Now it's Denton's turn." Jameson looked down at his hands, scarred, old, but still steady. "He thought I was too old. Too tired. Too broken to fight back." Jeremiah smirked. "Guess he never met a warrior." Jameson turned slowly. "No. But he's about to." The sun had dipped below the horizon by the time Jameson and his team were back in the field office, catching their breath. Their faces were streaked with dirt, sweat, and the remnants of the firefight. But their eyes burned with a singular purpose. Their mission was far from over. Evans paced back and forth in the briefing room, her eyes scanning the map on the wall as she replayed the operation in her head. "Denton's men are scattered, but that doesn't mean we've seen the last of them. We've only neutralized a small fraction of their network." Jeremiah cracked his knuckles, leaning back in his chair. "I don't care what's left of Denton's crew. I want him. The man's been pulling the strings for far too long. And now it's time for him to pay the piper." Jameson remained silent, his mind wandering to the elderly black man who had made all of this possible. The man who, against all odds, had taken matters into his own hands and fought back. He remembered the shock on Officer Hume's face as he realized he was no longer the predator, but the prey. Jameson still couldn't quite wrap his mind around it, an elderly man, assaulted by a cop, but still managing to land a hit that sent the officer to the ground. It was a defiance born of years of anger, pain, and survival. The thought sent a chill down Jameson's spine. "We've been getting tips from some of the courthouse staff," Evans said, snapping him back to the present. "Looks like Denton has a few safe houses spread throughout the city. If we can hit them before they regroup, we might finally get some answers." Jameson nodded. He needed answers not just about Denton, but about everything this operation had uncovered. The systemic corruption, the payoffs, the countless lives ruined by men in uniform. People like Officer Hume, who had long since lost their moral compass, had become the very thing they were supposed to protect against. We'll hit the first safe house at dawn, Jameson said. We do it fast, clean. We find Denton, and we put an end to his empire once and for all. Jeremiah cracked a smile. Sounds like music to my ears. Evans glanced at the clock. We've still got time. Jameson, you need to rest. You've been going non-stop for over 24 hours. We're going to need you sharp for what's coming. Jameson didn't argue. He had been pushing himself hard for the last day, ever since he received the first whisper about the courthouse attack. But now, with Denton's men scattered and the bomb threat averted, the stakes were higher than ever. They were getting closer, and he couldn't afford to let his guard down. He stood, his muscles aching from the constant movement. I'll take a few hours. But when I wake up, we're hitting that safe house. I don't care what time it is. Evans smiled faintly. We're all with you. Jameson. We'll take them down, one by one. The team dispersed, each of them knowing that the final assault was drawing nearer. The next few hours would be crucial. They needed to be ready for anything. It was nearly 3 a.m. when Jameson finally lay down in his makeshift cot. His body protested, aching from the bruises and exhaustion, but his mind remained sharp. There was something gnawing at him, something he couldn't shake. As he closed his eyes, he thought of the elderly black man, of the look on his face when he struck back against Hume. He was no longer just a victim. He had become a symbol of defiance, a living testament to the power of resilience. The sound of his breathing steadied as sleep finally took him. The ringing of his phone woke him up several hours later, the harsh light of the office's fluorescent bulb stabbing into his retinas. He groggily reached for the device, his fingers still stiff from the day's exertions. Jameson, he muttered, voice hoarse. We're ready, Evans said, her tone crisp. Dawn's breaking. It's time. He didn't need any further prompting. Jameson rose quickly, pulling on his tactical gear and checking his weapons. His team was already on their way to the first safe house. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. He couldn't afford to waste time. As they gathered outside the first location, a dilapidated warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The tension was palpable. The air was thick with anticipation, and the quiet hum of the early morning was almost too peaceful for what was about to unfold. Jeremiah slapped a fist against his palm. Ready to do this? Evans cracked her neck. I don't know about you two, but I'm already counting the bodies. Jameson gave a slight nod, his jaw tightening as he scanned the building. Let's keep this clean. Denton's men are dangerous, but they're not invincible. They moved in under the cover of dawn's early light, shadows stretching long across the street. Evans led the charge, with Jameson and Jeremiah following close behind. The first door they approached was locked, but Evans had no patience for that. She smashed through the door with a swift kick, sending it crashing into the walls. Gunfire erupted from inside, sharp and sudden. Jameson ducked as bullets ricocheted off the walls. He raised his pistol and fired back, taking down the first man in the line of sight. Jeremiah rolled to the side, dodging a volley of shots as he advanced into the room. The flash of his weapon illuminated the space as he engaged the next two attackers, his aim true and deadly. Evans was already moving forward, clearing rooms, checking corners. This is it. They're not getting out of here. Jameson's heart was pounding, adrenaline surging through his veins. He had no room for error. They couldn't afford any mistakes now. Another man appeared from behind a stack of crates, aiming a rifle at Evans. But before he could fire, Jameson was there, his gun going off before the man had a chance to react. Evans nodded her approval. Good shot. Keep pushing. The safe house was clearing out fast. But as they advanced through the building, Jameson knew the real fight was still to come. The path to Denton would be long and dangerous. But they were getting closer, step by step. Jeremiah paused, eyes narrowing as he surveyed the hallway ahead. Hold up. Something's not right. Jameson's instincts flared. Stay sharp. This could be a trap. Evans motioned to the others. We take it slow. No rush. They proceeded cautiously. Weapons ready. The hallway ahead was unnervingly silent. Every step Jameson took seemed to echo against the walls, a stark contrast to the fierce firefight they'd just left behind. The tension was palpable, like the calm before a storm. The safe house was almost entirely cleared, but the final confrontation still loomed. Jeremiah, ever the optimist, cracked his knuckles and whispered, "We're almost there. Denton's gotta be close." Evans glanced around the corner cautiously. "Stay sharp. If this is a trap, we can't afford to be overconfident." Jameson's eyes narrowed as he scanned the shadows. Every inch of him screamed that something was about to go wrong. He could feel it, the cold weight of anticipation pressing against his chest. They were walking into the belly of the beast. They moved cautiously down the hall, their weapons raised, ready for whatever might come. They passed an open door, the faint hum of machinery sounding from within. Jameson's gut twisted, warning him. It was too quiet, too controlled. It didn't feel like a hideout, more like a controlled zone, prepared for an ambush. Without a word, Evans motioned for them to take a hard left toward a reinforced door at the end of the corridor. The door was steel, unlike the rest of the building's dilapidated design. This was it. Jameson stepped forward, his body tense, his mind whirring with possibilities. He gestured for Evans to take point, his hand on the handle. But just as he was about to turn it, he froze. A faint clicking sound echoed in the silence, a sound that made every nerve in his body stand at attention. Before anyone could react, the door burst open with a deafening roar. Two armed men in full tactical gear stormed in, guns drawn, and the unmistakable sound of automatic gunfire ripped through the air. "Down!" Evans shouted, diving to the floor as the bullets ricocheted off the walls. Jameson didn't hesitate. He rolled to the side, bringing his weapon up in one fluid motion. The first assailant went down in a spray of blood before he could even fire off another round. Jeremiah, already in position, returned fire, taking out the second gunman as he dove for cover. The entire room had become a battlefield, the chaos of gunfire filling the air as they moved to clear the space. But it wasn't just the fire that made Jameson's pulse quicken, it was the realization that they were walking directly into Denton's lair. As he shot the last of the men, a chill swept through him. He could feel the presence of someone watching them. Someone higher up. And that someone could only be one man. The door at the far end of the room slammed shut with an almost deafening thud. Denton. Jameson's mind was racing. He'd known this moment would come, but the proximity of the showdown only heightened the stakes, the final confrontation. It was here. Jameson pointed toward the door. "We go now. This ends here." Evans nodded. "We stick to the plan. No room for error." They rushed toward the door, guns raised and ready. As they breached the threshold, the scene inside was almost cinematic. The lights were dim, casting long shadows across the room. And there, sitting behind a massive desk, was Denton. His cold eyes were fixed on them, calculating. Well, Denton said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I must say, I didn't expect this much trouble." Jameson's grip on his weapon tightened. "The trouble ends now, Denton. You've been running this city for too long. This is where it all stops." Denton didn't flinch. Instead, he slowly stood up, a smirk playing on his lips. "You think you can just waltz in here and take me down? You're a fool if you think that." Without warning, he pressed a button on his desk, and the entire room shifted. Heavy metal shutters clanged down over the windows, sealing the room into darkness. The lights flickered for a moment before the entire facility went silent. "Clever," Evans muttered. "You set us up." But Jameson didn't need to hear Denton's taunts. He had no intention of playing into his hands. "We've already won, Denton. No one's coming for you now." The smirk disappeared from Denton's face. His eyes flickered with something more dangerous, anger, maybe fear. He turned sharply and reached for the gun under his desk. His fingers brushing against the grip, but Jameson was faster. In a blur, he darted forward, slamming his fist into Denton's face with a force that sent the man sprawling backward. His weapon clattered to the ground. "Useless, you're done," Jameson growled, standing over Denton as the man tried to scramble away. But it was too late. "Denton, you've been terrorizing this city for far too long," Jameson continued, his voice low and deadly. "Now, it's over." Evans stepped forward, her gun aimed at Denton's head. "This is your last chance. Surrender. Now." Denton, blood dripping from his lip, glared at them with a look of pure hatred. "You think you can just take me down and walk away? I've got connections. I've got power. You won't get away with this." Jameson shook his head. "You've been caught, Denton. And nothing you say can change that. With a nod from Jameson, Evans moved in and placed the handcuffs on Denton, securing him in place. The cold metal clicked into place around his wrists, signifying the end of his reign. As they led him out of the room, Jameson couldn't help but glance back at the elderly black man whose self-defense had led them to this point. He hadn't just fought for his own survival. He'd sparked a chain of events that had brought them all the way here. Mission accomplished, Jeremiah said, his voice laced with satisfaction. Denton's going down. Jameson nodded. But his mind was already on the next step. There would be plenty more work to do. But for now, they had won. And that was enough. Hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more incredible stories like this. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think will happen next in Jameson's journey?